Mueller's investigation is a farce. Files joke indictment against Russian trolls. Elizabeth Voss reports on Liberty Beacon. If one needed proof that Mueller's investigation was an utter farce, they were in for a treat this morning when the Attorney General announced the indictment of 13 Russian trolls for allegedly interfering in the 2016 presidential election by posting on social media accounts. Laying Mueller's disregard for the First Amendment aside, the indictment is blatantly hypocritical in light of active social media intervention by pro-Clinton David Brock and his multi-million-dollar efforts to correct the record, quote-unquote. Julian Assange tweeted February 16, Mueller troll farm indictment today. Explicitly states no collusion, does not mention WikiLeaks, states trolls intend to support Trump and Sanders, oppose Clinton and Cruz. States trolls intent on anti-Trump and pro-Trump rallies post-election. The indictment alleged that, quote, beginning in or around June 2014, the organization obscured its conduct by operating through a number of Russian entities, including Internet Research LLC, Media Synthes LLC, Glav Set LLC, Mixed Info LLC, Azimuth LLC, and Novinfo LLC. The indictment further alleges that, quote, the organization sought in part to conduct what it called information warfare against the United States of America through fictitious U.S. persona on social media platforms and other internet-based media. According to the indictment, the co-conspirators, quote, engaged in operations primarily intended to communicate derogatory information about Hillary Clinton, to denigrate other candidates such as Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and to support Bernie Sanders and then candidate Donald Trump, end quote. The indictment represents the latest mutation of Russian interference allegations that have dragged on for over a year. As this author previously noted, the definition of Russian interference has mutated from unsubstantiated claims of Russian hacking to Russian collusion and finally to Russian social media trolling. WikiLeaks, February 16, tweeted, new Mueller grand jury indictment for 13 Russian nationals associated with the Internet Research Agency for online trolling during the 2016 U.S. election. The Washington Post reported in 2015 that David Brock's Correct the Record would work directly with the Hillary Clinton campaign, testing the legal limits, quote-unquote, of campaign finance in the process. How did Correct the Record skirt campaign finance law? The Washington Post tells us, quote, by relying on a 2006 Federal Election Commission regulation that declared that content posted online for free, such as blogs, is off limits from regulation, end quote. And post online, Brock's PAC did, quote, disseminate information about Hillary on his website and through his Facebook and Twitter accounts, officials said, end quote. Time reported the opinion of a lawyer at the Campaign Legal Center who characterized Correct the Record as, quote, creating new ways to undermine campaign regulation, end quote. Meanwhile, the New York Times detailed the outrage machine that Brock and fellow Clinton supporter Peter Daou had created. Quote, Peter Daou sat with his team at a long wooden table last week, pushing the buttons that activate Mrs. Clinton's outrage machine. Mr. Daou's operation called Share Blue had published the article on Mr. Trump's comment on his website and created the accompanying hashtag. They will put that pressure right on the media outlets in a very intensive way, Mr. Daou, the chief executive Share Blue, said of the Twitter army he had galvanized by the thousands, end quote. Going further, the New York Times details fervently that the $2 million budget of Daou's Share Blue and admits that the internet of the entire operation is interfaced with the outcome of the 2016 presidential election in favor of Hillary Clinton. Quote, beyond creating a boisterous echo chamber, the real metric of success for Share Blue, which Mr. Brock said has a budget of $2 million, supplied by his political donors, is getting Mrs. Clinton elected. Mr. Daoud's role is deploying a band of committed, outraged followers to harangue Mrs. Clinton's opponents, end quote. The New York Daily News put the matter most bluntly, quote, Hillary Clinton camp now paying online trolls to attack anyone who disparages her online, end quote. The LA Times described the active election interference, quote, it is meant to appear to be coming organically from people and their social media networks in a groundswell of activism, when in fact it is highly paid and highly tactical, end quote. Despite the millions of dollars poured into pro-Clinton outrage machine bent on her support, Hillary Clinton inexplicably lost the election to Donald Trump, a fact which still seems not to have sunk in for the former First Lady and Secretary of State. She still can't accept the fact that she lost. Something has to be blamed. But why bring up this apparently old news now, in the face of Mueller's latest mockery of the American judicial process and the First Amendment? Because it reveals, in the words of the legacy press, that, by definition, Mueller's circus has zero interest in campaign or election integrity and is solely interested in getting scalps for Hillary Clinton and for unelected powers she represents. Obviously here they mean deep state. Despite obvious hypocrisy, given the actions of Cher Blue and David Brock's Correct the Record, corporate media ignored all double standards and attempted to report on Russian Twitter trolling, quote-unquote, with a straight face. Business Insider wrote, quote, Russian Twitter trolls tried to bury or spin negative Trump news just before election, end quote, as if that wasn't what Correct the Record spent millions in doing for the benefit of Clinton anyway. The double standard applied to Clinton for her benefit goes beyond hypocrisy. Many have claimed that constantly metamorphosing allegations of Russian interference represents an insidious effort to silence dissent and anti-establishment political discourse. For example, by turning third-party, anti-establishment or conservative voices into Russians by proxy of their opposition to Clinton. By converting legitimate American free speech into insidious Russian bots, a pretext is created to silence dissent across the board. Without the Russian interference circus, the efforts to breach the First Amendment would be overtly authoritarian and would be inexcusable even by the most corrupt establishment media standards. The results of such a clampdown on free and effective speech have manifested in censorship crackdowns across large social media platforms, including Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, with Twitter admitting to actively censoring roughly 48% of tweets that include a hashtag DNC emails hashtag. It seems anyone with an opinion the establishment does not like is liable to be memory holed. This is an article co-authored by Kenneth Whittle, by Elizabeth Voss, and it's on the Liberty Beacon.